Hi, I wanted to talk for a moment about some of the comments I've made on past videos about the difference between the facts of mind, consciousness, and thought, and movements and teachings. What I want to clarify is that there's nothing wrong with movements and there's nothing wrong with teachings. When we understand that the principles of mind, consciousness, and thought are the source of all movements and all teachings, then we gain the freedom to understand that if we are involved in a movement, and many movements are very worthwhile, for example, the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, all the many historical movements that have led to greater equality and freedom for human beings. If a movement is a good movement, it is meant to lead to greater equality and freedom for human beings. But we can become identified with movements. And when we become identified and attached to movements or teachings, then we can forget that the source of all movements, all activities, and all teachings are these formless principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. What that means is that when we understand how movements and teachings are created, then we can gain the freedom to go back to square one, which means, in my mind, to go back to nothingness, the formless, what some have called beginner's mind, and see what arises from within when we are not attached to or thinking about a movement or a particular teaching, a particular way of growing and understanding or spiritual unfolding. I call it sort of getting real. There's a way that we can become very humanly attached to movements and teachings and people, teachers, as formless as those teachings or what those teachers are teaching may be. And then it's time to remember that all insight and all truth resides in us. And our access to all truth is immediate. Meaning, we are the truth. We have direct access to truth. And when we find ourselves becoming dependent on a teacher or a teaching or a movement, then we have misplaced the source of truth. So I myself am involved in a movement, and perhaps more than one movement if I think about it. And I think that it's wonderful to be involved in a movement. I'm not opposed to movements. I'm not opposed to teachings, and I'm not opposed to teachers. It's wonderful to love and respect teachers, to listen to teachers, and to be involved in movements. It's just that if you're going for true freedom, there will come a time in your spiritual maturity at which you will see a choice, and the choice will be whether to continue to follow a movement, a teaching, or a teacher, even when somehow your heart is not quite in it. There may be many reasons to continue: the reason of belonging, the reason of identity, self-worth, sheer sort of just familiarity, momentum of a historical involvement with a movement. And even in listening to one's own inner wisdom and truth, one may continue to be involved in a movement or a teaching. But the important thing is to find the source of all truth, which is this formless energy that cannot be encapsulated in a movement, in a word, in a phrase, in a teaching. All of these, if they are worthy or good movements and teachings, exist only to point you back to yourself and to the formless truth within. So I hope that's clarifying. And I wish you the best in every endeavor, and especially in finding your own God-given freedom. God bless you, and goodbye.